What? Yeah, listen. The music says it's not playing. Is it playing? Yeah. Let me check myself. As you got me confused. Oh, well, that's why, because it don't, I don't hear no music. Hey, Sherry. Glad to have you. Sherry, do you hear music? Because, Liberty be trying to be helpful, but she be, slow. Because she be trying to tell me stuff and then move on the next 15 minutes doing something. She always multitasking, so I don't know. But every time I check, it says the music is not playing. Okay, good. Thank you. Ah, what's up, gang? I see you in here too. So we're gonna well, I'm gonna talk a little crazy for a little bit. Well, not talk crazy, but you know how we do. I hope y'all enjoyed Kelly last week. It was fun having her as one of my previous employees, and she's a great person. And I'm sure she's working on a few things. And it's funny because I wound up pocket calling her, well, pocket inboxing her earlier this week as I was going to the doctor. Happy Tuesday, I guess. Happy Healing Day. So I've been trying that new little thing where come on, get some of this soul food. So actually, I mean, right now I'm just rambling for real, but I got one of my most views on one of my videos on TikTok now is crunk, and that's why I started trying out that food for the soul. So I think I'm gonna add that to stuff like this and all my videos, and we see we going with I'm still use both a couple of I'm still use two logos, but for there we're gonna start. All right, so this week, like I was saying, I want to revisit a few topics, and you said that 10 minutes ago. Don't mind me. Excuse me. Woo. I wound up getting in full conversations with the people in the chat, and I still hadn't been able to figure it out where the chat for everybody can see the chat. So it seems like sometimes I'm just rambling, but I'm talking to somebody on Facebook where you might be on something else. So we're gonna revisit a few topics where we're gonna revisit a few topics, and then we're gonna talk about a few things, and we're just gonna go for there. I'm gonna leave y'all with a few questions to think about for yourself and your own healing journey, and we're gonna wrap things up. I always try to make it an hour or less, but we get the rambling, we get the tripping, and yeah. So we're shooting for that hour again, hour or less. Yeah, good luck. All right. So one of the first things I want to talk about is I think we may have discussed it a little bit last week, but it was a topic of how we attach our tears to various emotions that allow us to be comfortable to express those tears, to cry. Right. And it was funny because, and one of the reasons we want to be able to revisit this topic because healing, like I've said, is like a spiral for the most part. You'll find yourself at the same point, revisiting some of the same topics, but on a deeper or a higher level, because there's a little more healing to be done there. And you'll start seeing how topics are connected and things of that nature. But one of the things that made me really want to talk about how we attach our feelings to various emotions was when I was doing that Reiki session. And at the end of that Reiki session, she was like, she cried a little bit, and then she was like, I never just really attached my tears. Like I never knew that anger would make me want to cry like that. You know what I mean? And for myself, that was one of the emotions that I actually did allow my tears to be attached to anger and to sadness. And I've been working on attaching tears to happiness, but I'm really oblivious to all the other emotions that tears can be attached to that um, I'm just oblivious to it. I just don't know. And I also talked to y'all a little bit for like over the last few weeks or so. I just been dealing with this feeling like I needed to cry, I wanted to cry, and I don't know where it comes from because I've already worked out my tears of joy. Life is going good for me right now after a tumultuous time period, and I'm happy. I don't have really. a reason to cry because of sadness. I'm not depressed. So those, like I said, those are the emotions that I normally allow myself to cry for. But I've been walking around with this emotion like I need to cry about something, and I don't know where it is. Um, so and like I said, doing that Reiki session winds up making me pay more attention to how we attach our emotions, our tears to various emotions. So TMI to give y'all a little bit information. So what I've been dealing with over this week. Well, for a little bit, but I got a solution to what I've been dealing with this week. So earlier this week, I went to a dermatologist. It was crazy because I wound up I like my hair. I think I got good grade of hair. I hadn't been doing much with it now. So my waves ain't spiraling like they normally do. But all of a sudden, out the blue, like I said, I did 6 months. I just started working this new position where I just decided I was even gonna go back to work December 18th. But leading up to that, I wasn't working. I was surviving. I was making my money to be able to pay my bills and stuff, but I was under a tremendous amount of stress, but I didn't really take the time to think about it. So all of a sudden, I started getting this little spot in the back of my hair where my hair was thinning, right? And I'm not losing my hair, so it's not a receding hairline. And I have a lot of people, a lot of guys, when they brush their hair, they have like this little swirl spot where the pattern of their hair is. And it creates like a little tiny little bald spot. So I've always had one of those little swirl spots. So I'm thinking it's my swirl spot, and I cut my hair, and then at one time I thought I whoops just went a little too low and cut a little bald spot in my head. So I'm like, okay, my hair gonna grow back. But then I started noticing that my hair wasn't necessarily growing back, and I seen this little weird spot. So I thought it was some sort of fungus thing, like not ringworm, because I know exactly what ringworm looks like. But I thought it was some fungus thing, and I know, so I started working on fungus cream and stuff like that, putting it in my hair. So I did that for a little while to see if that would help, but that didn't help at all. So of course, perfect timing. At the end of that, it's time for my annual physical, which I got plenty jokes about that for another time. But and so it's perfect timing. End of that, the 4 weeks of that, I go to the doctor. Of course, he sends me to the dermatologist, and I go to the dermatologist. Dermatologist immediately looks at it, right? And she's like, "Well, you have alopecia areata. Area, I can't remember the second word or something like that. It's a form of alopecia that was creating this bald spot in my hair. And I know she asked me a bunch of questions about my family history and do I have people in my family who deal with that. And other than male pattern baldness on my mother's side, I don't have people in my family that are dealing with hair issues or stuff like that. So she was like, it's either hereditary or it's stress related. And the ironic thing about that is when she said it was stress related, I felt like a weight was lifted off of me. And it was funny because I remember I met a woman and in interacting with her. She asked me to read her notes. Don't just tell me, just read her how she feels. Like what vibe am I getting from her? What energy am I reading from her? Like just off the cuff. So I told her, read her, and at the end of that, she says to me, "It feels good to be seen," right? And I was like, "Yeah, that's good." So I can always empathize, sympathize with what people say, but I never really had that experience to fully understand what she meant. So as I'm sitting at the dermatologist, and the dermatologist says, "Well, it's because of stress, 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 stress." Because that's what it was like a movie to me, and it just kept echoing, echoing, echoing in my head. And I told you that weight felt like it was gone, and it was like, "Yo, I feel seen," and it felt very good to be seen. And the wild thing, so now I have to address stress in my life because I never really thought of it as something that would do something like this. Like you hear of stories about how stressed you could be so stressed that your hair fall out, but they always make that seem like you'll do this and all your hair just fall to the ground. But they don't make it seem like it just comes simply, or it can come over time, or it can come unnoticeable, which is wild. So, and now I'm at a place where I have to take time and think about how stress has been played a role in my life. And ultimately, first thing I had to do was be thankful for the way that I was shown that I need to address stress. Because at my age, not to say I'm 1,000 years old, because it can happen at any age, really. But at my age, it's strokes, it's heart attacks, it's weird stuff like that. So I'm glad I didn't have to experience anything like that for me to pause to be able to address stress in my life. And the funny thing about that is one of the things that, like we were just talking about, how we attach tears to various emotions. So while I'm in the shower today, um, I hadn't even touched that spot since it started going, whatever it's been doing. So today I intentionally reiki my little spot, right? And as soon as I touch it, I'm about to cry. So what I realized is that that emotional tears that I needed to get off and I couldn't find, it was stress related. And one of the things that I needed to be able to do with myself is be able to find joy and happiness in the fact that I don't have as much stress as I've had before. And the thing about it is, now that I have this in my face and I have to deal with it, like I was saying, I really have to think about how stress is in my life. And one of the things that I realize is that I have normalized stress to the point where I feel like it's a part of who I am and it's the best part of me. And my main example of that was, like, if you ever work with me, you've heard me say this, or work with me or anything. You heard me say I'm a fourth quarter baller. So I'm one of those people. It may seem like I'm not doing so much, I'm not playing to the best of my ability those first 3 quarters. But in that fourth quarter, when the pressure or stress is on, I excel. And it's crazy because of this, I would find myself always functioning under a level of stress. So whether it be it, and it's crazy because I've even started going back to thinking about childhood, how these stressful mindsets have become normalized. And one way that I realized that stress has been normalized in our lives is I'm part of that latchkey generation, right? And we laugh and we joke and we talk all types of things about being latchkey kids, about how we had to grow up. But when if we pause and think about it, do you really realize how much stress and pressure that is for a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid? And what I realized at that moment, we were actually doing a lot of raising ourselves because the adults really weren't around. They were at work. So we were out there doing whatever we want to, trying to obey their rules, trying to do the right thing, doing the wrong thing, all while being kids. And that normalized a certain level of stress in our lives where we thought that think that's normal, right? And I even had to start looking at my decisions on dating and things like that. So even when it came to dating, if somebody had a certain amount of, for lack of better words, experiences, I'll say that certain amount of experiences that were stressful for them, I wouldn't necessarily see that as something that I shouldn't interact in because their stress will become mine. And now I'm layered in stress, right? And I'm also questioning, how is stress doing this to me now? Because I'm going through childhood, I see how I live with stress. I'm thinking about young adult when I'm a teenager, I see how I live with stress. Like I started working at 14. And when you really think about it, we normalize kids going to work, right? They talk about child labor laws and all these things. And North Carolina created certain labors where we can't work certain hours. But I started working at 14, 14. And I look at 14-year-olds today, I'm like, wow, they don't have that level of stress that we had. And it wasn't like I was made to work, but that's what I did. Then you get to high school, certain level of stress. Now you in college, it's this certain level of stress because you want to get good grades, you want to graduate. So we're just going along life, normalizing stress to the point if it doesn't affect our body, our mental, or some way like that, we don't think anything about it, right? So, and then the other thing where I had a lot of conflict was it's like I've been through stressful situations before. So why is this happening now, right? So two things I wound up having to realize. The level of stress that I've dealt with in the last couple of years has been different. And that includes COVID, that includes changing positions, that includes moving, that includes romance, that includes losing jobs, that includes losing my pops, that includes a whole lot of stuff. And stress had been normalized in my life. And then the wild thing about it was when that stress started leaving, I would be stressed trying to figure out ways to be stressed. So I'd start worrying about things and imagining things or thinking so far in the future about things that I can't necessarily control right now instead of being able to live in the present and a bunch of different things. And for me, now the transition is trying to be able to not be a fourth quarter baller per se. It's to be able to equalize because the whole purpose of this healing process is to have some balance in our life. And one, I learned that stress is an emotion that can make me cry. And I should have known that because as we're talking now, I'm thinking about a story that was probably one of the times I was most stressed. And I think I mentioned it to y'all. And it's when I got this job at this small little nonprofit. I got the job like February 7th. And by February 13th, the place was flooded. And we got that fixed. I got the parents back. The first day we let the parents back, the pipes broke again and flooded the place again. And I promise you, I went outside and screamed and cried. And one of my staff members, she's been on one of the shows where Kelly and I worked together at this place. Miss Nikki came outside. She saw me crying. I was so mad, so furious. I wanted to fight somebody, and I couldn't. But that was a sign that stress is something that can cause me to cry. And then, like I said, now I'm reviewing how I've normalized stress in so many. Kelly, thank you, Kelly, for being here. Hey, Kelly, no. And the funny thing about me, this is hey, I'm just a little stressful guy. So it's funny. So it's crazy because, like I told, when I went through my little spiritual journey, I found out that I could be a little angry. And when I talked to my mom about it, she just like, well, yeah. And what I realized is sometimes the things that people picked up as my anger was just really that stress energy that I had normalized in my life. And it's funny. That's why when the doctor said that it's stress causing that and I felt seen, most of the time when I interact with people, they don't know that I'm stressed. Even in the time, like I said, of building this, whatever this is that we're trying to build together, I've been more stressed than I ever have in my life. And I interact with you all every week, and you can't tell. And I interact with y'all outside of interacting with you every week. Some of y'all get personal readings. We talk, we laugh, we joke, and you never know that I was under the level of stress that it could make my hair fall out, right? And I also have to deal with that too because I have to be able to show in a healthy way that I'm stressed so people can recognize ways that they can support me in my stressful times. Because one of the things I remember my last job, my friend Makiba, I love her to death. Like she my friend. I went to the doctor one time. I had her come with me to hold my hand. And she one thing about my friend State, I am a honest person, But because being that, I have to accept that. And my friends do not care about telling me the truth. And my friend told me one of my problems. She was like, your problem is you be making everything seem so easy. So either people think that they can do it themselves or they don't recognize how much work you actually put into it. So now, because of this diagnosis or whatever, I really have to think about ways that I can show, exhibit, purge, get rid of stress in a healthy way so I can attract the appropriate support. You know what I mean? And so that's one topic of what I was dealing with this way. And I want you to definitely start thinking about how have you normalized certain things that may or may not be normal at all. So since we're on that normalized thing, I always got my notes and they be all over the place a lot of times. Um, since we're on that normalized thing, the other thing that I've been having to come to terms with or wrestle with has been how we as human beings, myself and you included, have normalized and minimized our greatness just in a effort to feel normal, whatever that is. And one of the things that is a perfect summation of this happened in the men's group that I always talk about on the show. So we're having a men's group meeting, and one of the brothers is talking, and he's saying, he's actually talking about energy and how, what I mean, you can connect with other people. And he says, well, if you just sit with me, you know what I mean, you should be able to feel what I'm feeling, right? And I had to tell him that is an example of how you have normalized your gifts because you think everybody can do that. And like I know you have people, friends, family, they've been busybodies since they were 4 years old. So the ability to enjoy or to allow yourself to sit in stillness is actually a gift. And this dude had normalized it to think that everybody can do it just so he can feel normal instead of finding value in his greatness, right? And for myself, I am now faced with trying to figure out what other gifts have I normalized and coming to terms why have I normalized that. And for myself, one of the reasons I try to normalize my gifts is because I moved a lot as a child. I lived in a lot of different places. I probably lived between childhood and adulthood. I probably lived at least 25 of the states, and I mean lived there of the states. And I've been to almost all of them, right? And one thing that you don't really want to do is be a person that stands out. You know what I mean? And even to the point where, even through the school system, the idea of conformity is beat into our heads. So one thing I never want to be is the person that stands out because standing out can also create a somewhat of a target for you. Okay. It's funny. So then you can probably relate to that. One of the comments just said that one of their customers just fussed them out because they don't accept compliments. So it's a reason why. Because you've minimized whatever they're complimenting as, that's one of your greatness, one of your gifts, one of your great attributes that you've minimized to try to feel normal, to try to make it seem like this is something that everybody has. You know what I mean? But everyone doesn't have that. So dealing with why I try to minimize my greatness is because I don't want to stand out. I don't want to be a target. Also, I grew up in the crack era. Went straight from the crack era to the gang era, right? And I'll never forget when I moved to New York, because New York was probably the place that I lived that made this option, this choice, very, very clear, right? Yes, that definitely was her point. So when I went to New York, I decided on, Either you going to get chased home or you going to chase people home. And I decided to be the person that chased people home. But in the action of being that, you also don't want to put a target on your back. You know what I mean? So living in New York, it taught me an example of not necessarily being a target. And in some ways, it definitely did teach me to minimize my greatness, right? So now I'm trying to think about because all of my great attributes I have not minimized. Some of them I have cultivated, and some of the cultivation has been conscious, and some of it has been unconscious cultivation, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think about the ways that maybe I have cultivated some of my gifts, right? And what gifts have I cultivated? So, one gift that I recognize that I have cultivated consciously and unconsciously has been my hands. My hands are, I'm very, for lack of better words, gifted with touch. So I knew, like, after I took that Reiki class, I'll never forget one of the best compliments that I got was from my brother's wife, right? And I made the post and I'm excited I did this Reiki because at this point, my touch is one of the things I've minimized and I forgot. And she came on the post and she said, "I'm so happy that you've actually got some training in healing because you've been healing people since you were a kid." Like I said, she's known me since I was, I don't even know, 9, 10, yeah, 9 or 10 years old. I was a kid for real. So one way that I know that my touch and how I know that I've cultivated this is one, if you've ever had the opportunity to get a massage. I remember it was crazy because I had got so good at massages with no training, right? So good at massages. If you can get one from me, you would think I am a certified, qualified masseuse. But I got so good at massages that sometimes in college I would make that my side hustle. So during exam time and weird times like that, you can mess around and get a massage from me on the low. You know what I mean? So I've had the opportunity to be able to cultivate that. And funny, I've always had the intentions when I lay hands, for a lack of better words, on people was to be able to help relieve their stress, their tension, their pain, their issues. You know what I mean? And Reiki winds up helping me work on the emotional things. And then the other way that I have cultivated my touch, my gift of touch, is through my ability to work with kids. And I'll never forget when I first got to working with children, there is a perception of how males should be in the teaching field. I mean, in the field of education, children and family community support. And it's very interesting. Some could describe it as standoffish and things like that. So you careful about how you don't want to touch the kids, and it's just crazy for a man. We don't have a lot of the freedoms to interact and touch on the children like everybody else. And I use that as healthy touches, not inappropriate touches, because that's the problem. Everybody looks at they're waiting for the man to inappropriately touch a child. And the wild thing in my whole career, I never really seen men do that. But while they were watching us, woo, woo, I used to see other teachers hit kids in books with their head, and these 2-year olds. So yeah, interesting things happen. So like I said, I remember when I got to those 4-year olds, and those 4-year olds kicked my butt in because they need skin to skin. And Kelly know what I'm talking about because we used to get them babies skin to skin all the time. Just rub our faces on them. So they need skin to skin. They thrive off touches. They need that. Sometimes just your touch will adjust their energy and calm them down. Touch is a form of redirection. You touch their elbow. It got so wild, I'll never forget that I had a kid in my class. I love her to death, and I won't say her name, but she recognized how good touch was, where I'd be sitting there working with a kid and she'd just come rub my ear, and then she'd always try to peek around to see if I'm being more relaxed. And that used to drive my co-teacher crazy. She was like, don't let that girl touch you like that. And I'm like, look, she's just sharing with me something that calms her stress. So that little baby could recognize that I was stressed. So she tried to share touches with me to calm me down. So I always had to touch them gently. I had to give them a whole bunch of hugs, to the point at the end of the year, that same teacher thanked me for how much I taught her about intimacy with children. It's okay to touch them. It's okay to hug. So the kids taught me to be soft. And my favorite compliment, and I'll never forget that boy. That boy used to rub my elbow all the time, just to touch on me. When I asked him, "Do you think my skin is soft?" He was like, "Yes." And like, somebody agreed with the fact that children do thrive off touch. And the wild thing about it is they thrive off gentle touch, and sometimes they need that rough touch too. So they'll call it rough and tumble play. So like sometimes when y'all be looking at the daddies and they being way too rough with the child, that is the balance. Those children do need that. So I remember when I was in the classroom, them boys and girls, because you think girls wouldn't do it, would wrestle in my class. And for me, it was easier for me to teach them how to do it safely than to be wasting my time to tell them not to do that, what they're going to do anyway. So rough and tumble play, gentle or whatever, the kids taught me the balance of gentle and hardness of the touch. And the last way that I've cultivated my touch, for the most part, that I've seen unconsciously, is hugs. If you get a hug from me, you will feel like you are the only person in this world. And I'll never forget when I got that was the first time I heard that compliment. And it was a person that made me feel just like that. I was like, wow, when you hug me, I feel like nothing else exists in this world. So when they gave me that compliment, I was like, wow, I feel the same. So now I'm very intentional when I give hugs. Like, I recognize the energy might be off, and I give you a hug. And if you've had a hug from me, you can attest, like, yeah, those hugs are healing. And the good thing about it is, what allows me to keep cultivating that gift is Reiki. Reiki presents challenges for me to use my touch in new ways, and it allows me to recognize energy and energy dynamics in various new ways that I've never used it before. And then the other way that I've cultivated one of my gifts, or my another gift that I've cultivated, which is a wild one for me, and we've talked about it on the show, laughed and joked about it, is my smell, right? And it's funny to me, so it's easy for me not to be able to see how I cultivated my smell, because I can't smell nothing. I have allergy problems. I be stuffed up. Sometimes you can probably even tell on here. Like, I got seasonal allergies for every single season. So it's like that. I can't smell nothing. But ironically, I can smell the unseen very, very well. I can smell, so like when I went to college, and like I said, I majored in biology, so I learned about us as humans being mammals and we release pheromones. I realized I smell that. And I can smell the energy of emotions, which, if you were a kid and you can smell all this weird stuff and you don't know what it is, you can't tell nobody, that is definitely something that you will minimize. But for me, it winds up being something that I cultivated as I got into my later teens, like 18, 19, 20. And I remember one of the first times that I realized that it was actually a something that I can do and nobody else can. Cause I figure, like, everybody else, like, I smell, you smell, you probably smell better than me. You know what I mean? But I'll never forget, I was in the process. This is in Charlotte too, but this church is not there anymore, which makes sense. But I was in the process. I was at this point in my life where I was trying to find a church home. And I was just out there exploring churches on my own. And I never forget, I went to this one church. Yeah, I just went to this one church on one Sunday and went up in there, right? And one of the things that was important to me about, if I was going to spend time in the church, I needed the pastor, the leader of the church, to be somebody that was like me for the most part, right? They were like a person who, was worldly and tried to get right, not a person who's been living right all his life. And I go to some churches that they were old churches. And how I knew it was old, the pastor always talked about getting right before you die, right? And it was funny because the time I came to see him, he had just got out the hospital. And I was like, that makes sense. Your congregation, all 80, 90, uh, getting right before you die makes sense, right? But unfortunately, I plan on living for another at least 40 summers, right? So I need to get right while I'm living. So unfortunately, right before I die, that I got too much time to worry about that, unfortunately. So that wasn't good for me. So I go to this other church, and it's funny because it's a church where I can see a lot of people wouldn't necessarily connect to. Because a lot of people, when they go to look for a church home, they are looking for healing. They are looking for energies that is similar to theirs. A lot of people are hurt. So when they first start going to church, they bring their hurt. So do you want to go to a place where the hurt seems familiar because it may make you feel like they're addressing their hurt? I'm sitting in that hurt. I'm sitting in that church and it smells like pain, depression, and misery. And I'm looking around and I'm like, maybe I'm tripping because everybody else was feeling okay. But then I started listening to the people get up to give testimonies. And I've been going to various churches a long time. And these testimonies were very, very interesting because they weren't necessarily testimonies. These people were still living in all the pain that they were trying to give a testimony about. I'm like, yeah, I thought the testimony comes after. You know what I mean? And I could be wrong, but I knew from my spirit and my energy, I needed people to have a testimony of overcoming, not being stuck in the trial or the tribulation. And everybody, and I promise you, at least 7, 8 people got up to give a testimony, and all of them were still living in their pain. And I was like, yo, this place is on fire. It had my senses on fire because all the pain and depression and all the hurt and anger just came and made like a melting pot. And I understood how the people will feel comfortable in this environment because it was familiar. The energy is familiar. So if I'm uncomfortable and I'm stuck in my trial or my tribulation, one of the things that's going to make me feel best about it is knowing I'm not alone in that boat, right? We talk about the reason why we're doing this healing the way we do is so we recognize that we're not alone in this boat or in this process. So I understood how the people could be there, but for me and my spirit where I was going, it just smelled like something I wanted to leave behind, right? But I brushed that off a lot and I don't really think much about it. But one ways that, okay. All right. So we got a new follower. Thanks for following. I appreciate you. I think that's Gwen. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. So I really didn't think about how I've been cultivating that smell. But the way that I do consciously, and we've talked about it, is through dating. So if you are a person I'm trying to get to know, I will smell you. I will smell you. I will smell you. I will smell you. I smell your neck. I just smell you. I smell your hands. I just smell you. And it was funny because when I was a kid, like trying to date in high school or going through college, I used to do that too. And people used to be like, oh my God, this is so weird. Why are you sniffing me like this? But now as an adult, it's wild. I think that people have had more experience with people with unique behaviors that mine seems a little normal. Right? So wanting to smell you seems a little normal, especially if you made yourself smell good. You want somebody to smell you. But that would help me be able to smell their baseline energy. So when they're calm, I know what they smell like. And when it's off, whether they're angry, whether they're sad, whether they're a bunch of different things, I can smell. So one of the things that drives me crazy in relationships, because my smell is my lie detector, right? So I'll come in or I'll see you or we'll interact and I'll be like, you okay? And people be like, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. I can't be like, no, you're not, because I can smell it. You don't smell like your normal baseline pheromone self, right? But you don't. So you're basically lying to me because I can smell you. I can smell you. I can smell you. And the ironic thing about that is, the growth. So I like that people see it now. But now I'm faced with the opportunity to have to. I've been thinking about how to utilize smell more in my Reiki intentionally, which is funny because I had not been using it intentionally, period, right? And what made me realize that it can come in hand with my Reiki and the energy healing is a couple of times when I was doing Reiki sessions. I remember the first one, I always forget the second one, what she smelled like. But when I got to her anger, it smelled like cotton candy and something else, right? And we talked about that, how people may make her angry, blah, blah, blah. Then I got to somebody else's anger, because anger is an emotion that I can find very, it's not always easily, but if you angry, I'm gonna find it. Um, and then somebody else's anger wound up smelling like butterscotch. So unconsciously, like I'm like, ooh, your anger smell like butterscotch. And I be wanting to eat that anger up, like the energy of the anger itself, which helps that come out of you some. But I never really made the connection to being able to use it in my Reiki, right? Until I've had an experience. So I interacted with someone, and and they had a unique smell. A smell I've smelled before, but it was kind of layered like that church. Like I told you, that church smelled like pain, despair. Um it was a little bit of hope. It definitely had they mustard seed of faith in there, because that was in there a little bit too. It's a little bit of faith, but everything else was overshadowing that. So I knew how this is one reason why I struggle with crowds too, because all those smells coming together, like I function in crowds, you won't even know. But if you know me, you pay attention to my easy energy, it can be easily overwhelming because all those smells, all those energies coming at once. But I'm interacting with this person, and they have a layered smell like that church, right? And it's funny because I'm trying to figure out what it is. Like, what does this smell like? And to me, it's a weird smell. It's not a weird smell. It's going to be something that you all have smelled before. So to me, it wound up smelling like a Chef Boyardee in the can and carrot baby food mixed together, right? And the thing, what I had to do was take some time and peel back each one of those individual smells who came to make that smell. So when I talk to that person, they'll have ways to address. So now I'm faced with the opportunity, or with the challenge of intentionally using smell in my practice, right? Not yuck. Listen, it doesn't stink, because listen, some stuff does smell bad. You know what I mean? Like some people's anger smells like manure. You know what I mean? So some stuff smells bad, and smell is interesting because some people smell vanilla and smell vanilla. Some people smell vanilla and smell shit. So smell is interesting. So it's unique. So the wild thing is, I don't. It wasn't a stinking smell. It was unique, and it was complex to my emotions, and I was just trying to. I needed to peel back the layers to be able to figure out what it was, right? But what that definitely did show me was that I can also receive messages about people through my nose. And if I intentionally use that in my practice, that could be another gift that I can cultivate to um, help me become better at what I do and help other people. Because it might be a gift that you smell too. Like one of the comments says, a Pisces thing. And I don't know if you know, but I'm a Pisces. A Pisces. And you know what's funny? And I do want to say this about Pisces. I really am. Sometimes I'm confused about this Pisces perception, where they make it seem like Pisces just be crying all the time, like we so emotionally sensitive. And in a sense, we are, right? But there are plenty of Pisces that don't respond with tears. Like I told you, I only allow myself cry over two emotions: So all the other emotions that I felt, you was gonna get something else. You got what I'm saying? And Pisces got that dual. You got that. We. One thing I understand Gemini because they got that split personality. They got them twins, and Pisces got that thing, that same thing going on. We got one stream, one fish upstream, one fish in the light, one fish downstream, one fish in the dark, which comes beneficial in situations like that because it helps me navigate people through their own darkness. You know what I mean? So anyway, so now I'm left with the challenge of intentionally using Reiki in my healing practice and to help others, and hopefully to motivate you all to start thinking about some of that. Doop, 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 doop. So another thing that I think that so now like I knew those are two gifts that I've been conscious of and I've uh consciously worked on. But now faced with another challenge to think about the other gifts that I may not have that can affirm my being of who I am, right? And this ties back into what my homeboy said from the men's meeting. The ability to, if I just sit there and someone to understand. And I also know, I'm really taking this time to recognize my new gifts and how they actually help me recognize the gifts in others. How I was able to recognize that gift in my homeboys and appreciate the individuality of everyone. Because, like I said, we've been beat to conformity to the point that the things that make us special and individual and all of those things, we normalize it and tell ourselves that everyone has this ability. But what we really need to do is take time, take assessment, take personal inventory of these things that actually do make us special. And one of the things, like I was able to recognize in my homeboy, is that gift of being able to take time, right? And it's wild because one thing that is like a culmination of this gift I have has been the last 6 months. So I've been able to take the time to do what's necessary for me and not even and trust me, it wasn't because I was able to. I put that first and foremost in my life and forced that time to be able to do that so I can meditate and become one and whatever I needed to do. And it's funny because I've always been like, okay, so I think about it in relationships as well because I do a lot of energy readings and I'm interacting with a lot of people and I see a lot of people. A lot of people, man, I think one of the concepts that I want to talk about or we might have mentioned is dating to fill holes. So people will be starting a new thing before they really completed the last thing, right? And one thing that I've always done in between, I've never been in the midst of breaking up with a woman. Well, not never, right? But it hasn't been my method of operation to be breaking up in one relationship and then take another woman to help me deal with the breakup of that relationship. You know what I mean? And what I wind up doing, and even if I've even been in that situation, because I'm not gonna say I never have, even if I've been in that situation, when those dynamics come to an end, I've always taken the time for myself to be able to recharge. And I've always been so hard on myself about this dynamic because I always question on if I should do that, if I'm taking enough time, if I'm doing anything, or like it's always been so hard. I've always been so hard on myself. And I realize now as talking to you all that that was my way of minimizing my greatness, right? The great thing about me. And then when I look at it in comparison to other people, why I can really feel comfortable about it, what I see most people do is either they take no time at all, it's always extreme, or they take too much time. Like you hear people talking about, I've been single 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. That's not a flex. that is more symbolic of your fears than your confidence and your courage, right? So that's one reason why I can pat myself on the back, because that is actually one way that I actually have balance. So like, and it's very contextual, because some relationships I'm ready to move on in a month. Some relationships like now, something in my spirit just says I need to give myself at least a year. You know what I mean? Now I haven't been on any time frame, consciously been on any time frame, but I just been putting myself first, and however that, well, my emotional healing and stuff first, and however much time that takes, then it's okay. And that doesn't mean I'm not interacting or anything like that. That just means I won't allow myself to commit until I'm at a place where I won't cheat the relationship or cheat myself. You got what I'm saying? And I don't want to cheat myself, so I need to take this time to build on myself. But that is a gift that I can be proud about, which also allowed me to be able to tell my homeboy, like, yo, that's a gift. Most people can't sit still. Like my best friend, we were on the, well, one of my best friends, one of my best male friends, we were on the phone and he was talking about, man, I got to move, I got to do something. Like because the silence can be deafening, right? And people can't always deal with that silence. And I'm thankful that that is a gift that I have. So I came to the realization that, like I said, one of my gifts is the ability to take time. And as I go on this process, I'm gonna start now. I'm making sure I'm constantly aware to be more present in what's happening now, and not so worried about the future. That I can take time to see some of the other gifts that I may have not appreciated, not valued, or may have constantly minimized in a effort to feel normal, right? So, oh, okay, we might have actually did it. Unless y'all got some questions, 'cause I'm about to wrap this thing up, and this is about the first time. Well, it ain't the first time, but we do it sometime. But I actually kept it within about a minute. I mean, not a minute, like an hour. It says 57 minutes on my clock. I don't know what it says for y'all. But I think we did it. Anybody in the chat? I see there's a couple people. Is there a gift that you are proud of, or if there's a gift that you didn't think about was actually a gift of yours, and through this conversation you realize, excuse me, ooh, you realize that it might be something that actually is uniquely you. You know what I mean? Say you needed this word today. I That's why I be forgetting to talk about this quote, but that's why the quote is, "Why fit in when you were made to stand out?" Right. So, and against what society tells us a lot of times, be proud to stand out. If you want to add anything, or if anybody feeling lucky, the link. Well, if you're on Facebook, the link is in the chat. So you can click on that link and feel lucky and jump on here, and then you can talk about it. Hope, you want to get on here and talk about your myofascial? Is that it? Don't I? It's one of them science words, man, and I don't never like playing myself saying science words out loud, because in my mind I can make them sound however they want to. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, because I know it's my old face, and I get stuck right there. Cause that's when the sciencey come in, spatialis. That's what I feel like. But now you know what? You may not do it today, but you should do it soon, because I think that's a new aspect that I'm add to the lives. Yeah, I did. So that's why I need you to come on the live and talk about it, because people would like to know about that. But I think an aspect that I want to add to this is to start interviewing other people who are in this healing field, or whatever we want to call it, or helping people. No, yeah, not today. I'm messing with you. But think about it in the future, so I can interview you. You talk about that. And what made me think about it, because this dude in the men's group, that he is doing spinal something, and it's pretty much how you get energy blockages, and it shows up in your spine. So like, you got lower back problem or tailbone problems and stuff like that. And So I told him I'm gonna talk to him. I'm gonna have him come on because I feel like y'all appreciate something like that, especially if you're having back problems. And you can find out if your back problems are caused by something like stress that you've normalized and that you function on in your life, right? All right, so hope think about it, and we'll chat about that later. You know what I mean? And oh, also I'm gonna be traveling a lot. This not for hope. This for everybody. I'm gonna be traveling a lot. So if I'm in your city and I reach out to you and I'm like, hey, I'm in your city, let's connect. Let's connect. You know what I mean? Or if I'm in your well, yes, I will reach out to you because I'm a Pisces. You know what I mean? I'm good for like, yeah. Have your people call my people, and I don't got no people. Or I'm like, yeah. Let's get up at later, and later never comes. That's why I'm funny about if you get me to say a time, I'm a stickler by the time I'll be early. But most of the time I'll be like, yeah. I'll call you back. I don't even say when or anything like that because I don't like being bonded to stuff. I'm a Pisces. I'm water. I like the flow. So all right. So my leaving messages is just basically a couple of questions for you all and something for you to think about. My bow tie. I want to do a little green and blue. Look, it's healing green too. If you can't tell, yeah. Side note, because I'll be talking to y'all. As a matter of fact, somebody Liberty, you asked me what I was gonna make my colors in my living room as I change it. I realized I think I want to go with it's a color I see in my head, but it's like aqua green. I'm going with the aqua greens and aqua blues, and that's what I'm gonna deal with. Not yeah, I'm going aqua. You know what I mean? Cause my bedroom is going gray right now. So, and my living room is a little brown, and it's just a mosh posh of stuff. Cause my old color scheme on my old couches, I had red couches and stuff. So I got a little red and blue, but now I got brown couches with brown, and it still got some red and blue storage bins. So I'm about to, but aqua is what's going on. Sorry. Side note. So now, like I was saying, while I was trying to wrap it up, if I don't talk about it now, you see all this gray hair, man, I'm gonna mess around and forget for real, for real. But anyway, oh man, I went over the minute. Hour. Anyway, so wrapping up, leaving messages is something for you all to think about. And I really want you to think about where have you limited your emotional spectrum by attaching your tears and your cries to only specific emotions for yourself, and then how you projected that mindset onto others, right? Because when we normalize our behaviors, we think everybody should be doing it or could be doing it, right? And then the next thing I want you to think about, which is one of the questions or the topics I brought up in the conversation, what gifts have you normalized or minimized to feel normal? And two weak things that I want you to ask yourself while you're thinking about that is why have you normalized that? So, like I said, for me, my situations was so I wouldn't stand out. I didn't want to be a target. You know what I mean? Um, and then I also want you to think about how has it affected your relationship, and that's your interactions with yourself and interactions with others. Because, like the example I gave you, my homeboy felt as though if you just sit beside, he felt that what his gift of solitude was so normal that all you have to do is just sit beside him, and you should be able to do it too. And because you can't, something's all like, why can't you do that? You know what I mean? So how have you projected your gifts onto other people, or the ways that you've minimized yourself onto other people, and how you've done it and how it affects yourself? All right. So that's it. Um, Maybe I'll bring that up next week. Maybe not. But hopefully one of y'all feel lucky. Come on next week and we'll talk about that. I appreciate you as always. You guys are great. We're doing something wonderful. I appreciate you helping me get one of my highest viewed videos ever. And I'm gonna post a new video tonight. So if this shirt looks familiar, don't be telling nobody. Don't be getting in the comments talking about I seen that on your show. But I just didn't have the bow tie on. But I'm actually gonna post that video, and it's funny. I asked somebody today. So I asked it's for teachers, educators, people who work with the community. What is something that the children or the families have done that lives rent free in your head? And I asked one of my coworkers today because he said he was a teacher for a while. And he was talking about how, he was in the classroom and he had this little boy who had to go to the bathroom. So he tell the little boy go to the bathroom, little boy go to the bathroom, anything, everybody, little boy come out. He said the next thing you know, little boy come right back to him. And the little boy's like, I gotta go back to the bathroom. He's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And he's like, well, you just went to the bathroom. He's like, I know, I gotta go back. So him being the new teacher, he's like, oh man, ain't no way. Go sit down. So he tell the little boy, go sit down. And the next thing he knowing, the little boy is walking around with the garbage can. So he asked him, like, what's going on with the garbage can? He said he looked at that garbage can. It was a garbage can full of pee. You should have let that little boy go to the bathroom, for real, for real. So the question is going to be for all those people who work with people, man. What is something that the kids do that live rent free in your head? And I think I probably told y'all mine, but check for those, at least on TikTok. Again, I appreciate you. Doop, 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 doop. We'll be live again Thursday to continue the book. Next Tuesday. I don't know how I'm gonna do that still because I will be somewhere else in North Carolina. I will be traveling. So I'm gonna figure it out. I'll make a post about it or something. We'll go live. It might be like how we do on Thursday nights, where it be on YouTube. But I'll let you know. All right. I appreciate you. And remember, always eat your soul food.